I don't remember saying goodbye to David. Maybe I did. Maybe I just nodded, or maybe I stood up too quickly. But I remember the sensation afterward, like the cafe air had thickened, pushing me forward, urging me out before I changed my mind and unraveled. Outside, the early evening air was crisp, the kind that should have felt refreshing. Instead, it pressed against my skin like a weight. I stood beside my car for a moment, holding the keys in my hand, staring down at the silver reflection of myself in the driver's side window. My belly rounded gently under my sweater, my body a map of survival and change. I got in and closed the door with more force than I meant to. The soft click of the lock was oddly comforting, like I'd created a shell around myself where no one could intrude, not even regret. I sat behind the wheel, not starting the engine immediately. My palms were still pressed flat against the wheel, knuckles white, jaw clenched. The meeting had gone better than I feared, but worse than I wanted. Not because David said something wrong, he hadn't really, but because the entire interaction reminded me of how many versions of myself I'd had to abandon to get here. The girl who cried in bathrooms after each negative test. The wife who smiled politely through dinners with his mother, who saw me as incomplete. The woman who watched him walk away. I adjusted the rearview mirror and caught my reflection, eyes sharp, tired, but not defeated. "You're not her anymore," I whispered. I started the car. The drive home was quiet. I didn't play any music. I didn't even turn on the radio. Just the gentle hum of tires against the road, a low soundtrack for the chaos still unraveling in my chest. David's face kept flashing across my mind, not because I missed him but because I didn't. I'd braced for a tidal wave and instead got a ripple. Something in me had shifted. Maybe it was the babies. Maybe it was the long road of healing I'd crawled down alone. But I didn't feel the pull toward him I once did. Only curiosity. A sort of reflective ache for what could have been, before everything broke. The closer I got to home, the more present I became. My hand rested instinctively on my belly at a red light. I'd read somewhere that babies could feel stress hormones. I didn't want them soaking in my confusion. "I'm okay," I said aloud to myself and maybe to them. "We're okay." I turned onto my street and pulled into the driveway, the porch light already on. There was something deeply settling about seeing it lit, like the house itself knew I needed an embrace. As I got out and walked up the steps, the cool air brushing against my cheeks, I thought again about what David had said. "You look strong." He was right. I was strong. But strength didn't mean I wasn't still afraid. Of how it would feel to see him again. Of whether he'd try to push his way back in. Of what I would say if he asked to be part of the babies' lives. I didn't have answers yet. Inside, I placed my keys in the ceramic bowl by the door and leaned against the wall, breathing out slowly. The house was still. Safe. Familiar. And yet, some part of me was different now. Not because of David. But because I'd faced him and I hadn't crumbled. I kicked off my shoes, padded into the kitchen and poured a glass of water. My stomach fluttered, a tiny thrum beneath my ribs. I smiled instinctively. One of them was moving. Or maybe both. I pressed my palm gently to the spot and closed my eyes. Whatever came next, I knew this. I wasn't navigating it for David or because of him. I was doing it for myself. For them. For the woman I'd become. Strong. Whole. Unapologetic. I barely remember the drive home. My hands had been steady on the wheel, but my mind was a tangle of loose wires, sparking in every direction. David's face, that familiar ache in his eyes. The way he had said my name. The quiet regret hanging on his breath like fog. I hated that part of me had listened. That a thread of old tenderness had pulled taut across my chest when he'd asked, "Do they kick yet?" Now, in the hush of my living room, the silence felt heavier than the conversation we'd just had. I toed off my shoes and sank onto the couch, pressing my hand to the round swell of my belly. The twins shifted gently beneath my skin, like they knew I needed reassurance. "I'm okay," I whispered to them. "We're okay." But then I wasn't. It happened fast, like the flick of a switch. A tightening in my abdomen, sudden and sharp, yanking me out of my thoughts. My breath hitched. Then the pain hit again, deeper, longer this time, radiating across my lower back and making me grip the edge of the cushion. No. I tried to stand, but the room tilted, a slow sway like a boat losing anchor. Cold sweat broke across my forehead. My knees buckled. I reached for my phone, barely able to press the emergency contact before the next wave of cramping knocked the breath from my lungs. I remember Callie's voice somewhere far off. Amelia? Amelia, what's wrong? I need help, I rasped. Something's wrong. After that, it was a blur. The paramedics. The flash of red lights outside the window. The rush of cold air as they lifted me onto the stretcher. I remember clutching my belly, begging the babies to stay with me, to hold on just a little longer. I woke up to the sterile hush of a hospital room. The lights were dim, machines beeping in rhythm beside me. A nurse moved quietly in the corner. My body felt heavy, weighed down by fatigue and fear. I turned my head slowly, and there she was. Callie, sitting in the chair beside the bed, her eyes red-rimmed but alert. They said it was preterm contractions, she whispered, reaching for my hand. They've stabilized you now. You'll need to rest. A lot. Are they? I couldn't finish the sentence. They're okay. For now. But one of the twins, the girl, she's measuring a little behind. They're watching her closely. I swallowed hard, closing my eyes as a tear slid down my temple. I was so careful. I didn't do anything. Callie squeezed my fingers. This isn't your fault. You've done everything right. These things just happen. The door opened with a soft click. And there he was. David. His face was pale, eyes hollowed by panic. He looked like he hadn't slept. His jacket was unzipped, shirt wrinkled, hands trembling slightly at his sides. I didn't ask how he got here. I didn't need to. Callie must have told him. He stepped inside cautiously, like the room itself might reject him. His eyes locked onto mine, and I saw something raw flicker there. Something ancient and broken. I needed to see you, he said quietly. When Callie called, I came right away. I couldn't speak. My throat was thick with emotion, anger and exhaustion pulling me in opposite directions. I wasn't ready for him. Not here. Not now. But there he was. I heard about the contractions, he said, his voice cracking. Are they okay? I nodded faintly, too tired to repeat the details. He looked relieved and wrecked all at once. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. I know I don't deserve to be here, but I needed to be. Callie stood, giving me a small nod. I'll give you a minute. No, I said quickly, catching her hand. Stay. David didn't argue. He just sank into the corner chair, head in his hands, breathing like a man who'd run miles to get here. Maybe he had. I didn't know what to feel. Grief. Gratitude. Fury. Hope. All I knew was that I had almost lost the 2 lives I'd fought so hard to create. And David had walked into that moment like a ghost from a life I had almost left behind. I turned to Callie, barely above a whisper. I'm not ready for this. She nodded. You don't have to be. One breath at a time. And somewhere beneath the fear, beneath the ache and chaos, I felt it, the smallest flutter of life within me. A quiet promise that we were still here. Still fighting. Even if everything was about to change. The hospital room buzzed with quiet activity. The rhythmic pulse of machines, the soft whoosh of the blood pressure cuff deflating on my arm, and Callie's breath beside me. She hadn't said much since David walked in. She sat close, a physical barrier, just as I'd asked. David lingered near the foot of the bed, a bouquet of silence wrapped tightly around him. He didn't try to speak right away, and I was thankful. I needed a moment to breathe. Callie stole a glance at me, then at him. I should probably give you a moment, she said, but her voice wavered, unsure if it was truly what I wanted. You don't have to go, I said. My fingers curled over hers instinctively. Not yet. She nodded, sitting back down. For a few minutes, the 3 of us remained in a heavy, uncertain triangle. But something shifted. David's eyes stayed on me with a quiet ache. Not desperation but depth. Like he had rehearsed 1,000 words, but none seemed enough now. I didn't meet his gaze at first, but when I finally did, the air thickened. Callie noticed. He turned toward me, then toward David again. I didn't need to speak. She read us, in the silence. And suddenly she stood. Actually, she said softly, more to herself than anyone else, I think you 2 need this moment more than I do. Callie, I started, sitting up, reaching for her hand. But she was already halfway to the door. She paused only once, looking back with something tender in her eyes. Not guilt. Not worry. Just quiet hope. You'll be okay, she said. Both of you. And then she slipped out like the hush before a storm. David stepped forward, still cautious, still unsure. Why are you really here, David? I asked, my voice steady even as my chest thudded with anxiety. He looked at me like he was seeing something ancient and familiar. Because I couldn't stay away any longer. Not just because you're pregnant. I stared. I've wanted to come back, Amelia. Long before I knew about the twins. I just didn't know how. I didn't think I had the right. I didn't interrupt. I've missed you. And the more I watched from a distance, the gallery notices, your name in newsletters, the exhibit, I realized I was still holding on. Hoping for a door to open, even a crack. I swallowed hard. His words were peeling something open inside me. The pregnancy, it felt like a sign. But even before then I was trying in my own cowardly way. The texts. The visits. I came by your studio once just to sit in my car outside like a fool. And suddenly I remembered. That quiet knock on the door weeks ago, followed by retreating steps. I thought it was delivery. But maybe. You think just showing up now erases everything? I asked quieter this time. No. I think showing up is just the beginning of what I should have done all along. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling again. With anger? Longing? I couldn't tell. I'm not saying I trust you, I whispered. But I'm also not saying I want you gone. His lips parted, hopeful. But he didn't move closer. I don't know what I want, David. Except space. And honesty. You'll have both, he said. But the moment was cut short. A sharp beep pierced the air. The monitor beside me blared, faster than before. My chest tightened. I grabbed at my belly instinctively. Something's wrong, I gasped, suddenly aware of the spinning ceiling. Amelia. David lunged forward. The door burst open. Nurses rushed in. She's hypertensive, one said. BP's climbing. Pulse irregular. Turn her on her side. Stay calm, the other instructed as they moved quickly, adjusting IVs and reading screens. David stepped back, hands raised, face pale. Are the babies? We've got her, the nurse snapped. I tried to breathe, to stay still, to tell myself everything would be fine. But in the blur of voices and wires and cool hands on my skin, I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper had cracked open. And David was still there, watching, waiting, not reaching, not retreating. Somewhere between forgiveness and fear, the silence between us deepened. And for now that silence said everything. David stepped forward instinctively, alarm flooding his face. What's happening? Is she? Sir, we need you to step outside, the taller nurse said, already adjusting a dial near my bed. I'm not leaving her. We need space, the nurse repeated, more firmly this time. Please. His eyes met mine. For a moment I saw the same look from years ago. The night we learned I might never have children, the night the silence between us truly began. But now wasn't the time. I gave a slight nod and that was all it took. He backed out of the room, the door clicking softly shut behind him. The world narrowed after that. I was aware of wires, cool hands, and the doctor's voice explaining things I couldn't hold on to. Something about one of the twins. Minor distress, needing to stabilize, my blood pressure too high. I tried to stay conscious, to anchor myself in something, anything. But all I had was the weight of the moment pressing down on me. When I opened my eyes again, the room was dim, quiet. An oxygen mask covered my face. The sharp scent of antiseptic clung to everything. Callie sat beside me, her phone in hand, a half-empty coffee cup balanced on the windowsill behind her. You scared the hell out of everyone, she said softly, standing as soon as she saw my eyes flutter open. I tried to speak but my throat burned. He helped me remove the mask for a moment. What happened? One of the babies gave them a scare. Your blood pressure shot up. Stress, she said, squeezing my hand. You're okay now. So are they. But you need to rest. I let the words settle. My body felt like it had run a marathon, but something heavier lingered. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. Callie sat back down, brushing a piece of hair from my forehead. They're putting you on modified bed rest. No more high drama, okay? I gave her a weak smile. Tell the drama that. There was a pause, a shift in the air between us. David's still outside, she said finally. He's been pacing like a madman. I didn't think he'd leave if the hospital caught on fire. My breath caught. Did you let him stay? I didn't chase him out, she said. But I didn't invite him in either. I nodded slowly. A part of me wanted to bolt the door. Another part, tired and scared, wondered what he might say now when everything suddenly felt fragile again. A knock at the door broke the silence. It creaked open and David stepped in slowly, holding a small folded blanket in his hands. The one my mother had knitted years ago, the one I used to keep on the armrest in our old house. I thought you might want this," he said, his voice gravelly. Callie stood. He glanced at me, then at him. Her gaze lingered, reading something in his face. Then quietly, without asking me this time, she nodded once and left the room. I swallowed hard. He stood at the foot of the bed, unsure whether to come closer. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I am," I said, my voice hoarse. "I was scared," he admitted. "So was I." He stepped closer. "I'm not going to push. I never stopped caring, Amelia. And the truth is, I came to that exhibit because I knew you'd be there. Not just because I knew you were pregnant. I wanted to see you. I don't know. A sign." I looked away. He continued, "But I wanted to come even before I knew about the babies. I've been trying, Amelia. The texts. The messages. The visits. I know I did everything wrong. But I wasn't trying to earn my way back with this pregnancy. I just hoped it wasn't too late." His words hit me like cold rain. I remembered the text. The voicemail. The time I saw his car across the street and thought I imagined it. He had tried. But I was still tired. Still scared. Still not ready to hand him a key to this new chapter of my life just because he finally showed up. "I'm not ready," I said. He nodded, silently folding the blanket and placing it beside the bed. "I just needed you to know." I watched him go. The door clicked behind him. A moment passed before I pressed my hand against my stomach. "You scared me, little ones," I whispered. "But I'm here. We're here." And for the first time since the test showed 2 lines, I didn't feel like I was standing alone. The room had fallen into a stillness I wasn't prepared for. The quiet hum of machines. The dull ache in my lower belly. The nurse adjusted something on the floor, murmured a soft, "You're doing okay," and left. I was alone for only a minute before the door eased open again. Callie stepped in cautiously, holding 2 cups of something warm and probably undrinkable. Her eyes darted to the monitors, then to my face. "You scared the hell out of me," she whispered, setting the cups down. Her smile was trying to stay casual, but I saw the worry deep in her brow. "I scared myself," I admitted, my voice raspy. "They said one of the twins might be under stress. They're monitoring closely now." Callie pulled the chair closer and sat down. "You're strong. And those babies are fighters." I nodded. But something about her presence, the calmness of it, unraveled me. My eyes stung. My throat caught. I pressed the back of my hand against my mouth, trying to stop what I knew was coming. But Callie reached out, gently took my hand and just said, "It's okay." And just like that, I started to cry. Big aching sobs. The kind I'd kept down for months. Not just from fear of losing the twins or the scare in the hospital or even the pain of the monitor alarms. I cried because I couldn't pretend anymore. "I still love him," I whispered through tears. "I didn't want to. I didn't plan to. But I do, Callie." Her eyes didn't flinch. She squeezed my hand tighter. "I know. I hate that I do," I choked. "After everything he did. After how he left me, how I picked myself back up. How hard it's been to even feel like a full person again. I still love him." "That doesn't make you weak," she said firmly. "It makes you human." I shook my head. "But what if he just thinks this pregnancy gives him a ticket back into my life? What if all this, his visits, his messages, what if it's all just guilt dressed up as love?" Callie sat with the question, letting it breathe. Then she said, "Maybe it is. Or maybe he's grown. Maybe he's actually seeing you now, not the version of you his mother tried to paint. But whatever he feels, Amelia, it's not your job to fix him. You only let him back in if it's what you want. On your terms." I swallowed hard. "I don't know what I want." "That's okay too." She brushed a strand of hair off my forehead like she used to when we were kids and I had the flu. Her presence was a comfort I didn't know I'd needed so badly until now. We sat in silence for a few more beats. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors settled into a quiet lull. Callie glanced at the door. "He's still out there, you know. He hasn't left." I didn't answer right away. "I don't know if I can open the door all the way," I said finally. "But I don't think I can close it either." "That sounds like a beginning," she said with a small smile. I looked at her. "Do you think that makes me foolish?" No, she said. I think it makes you brave. The tears had dried by then, leaving that fragile feeling that comes after a storm. Soft, raw, but honest. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For not saying I told you so. For not telling me to block him forever. For just sitting with me in it. She leaned back and grinned. That's what sisters are for. Sitting in your mess until you're ready to stand again. I smiled, tired but grateful. Outside the room I could sense the world still spinning. Doctors talking, shoes squeaking on tile, the dull echo of life continuing. And somewhere out there, David was probably pacing or staring at the wall or wondering what I was thinking. He'd have to wait a little longer. Because right now in this small, quiet room, I wasn't David's ex-wife, or a woman caught in a tangle of love and regret. I was just a woman who had survived heartbreak, who was growing two lives inside her, and who had just told the truth out loud for the first time. That was enough for now. Check out part 6.